Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. As you can see on your screen, today's webinar is Improving Your Design Review Process with Bluebeam Review, presented by our friends at Microdesk. My name is Nick Decker. I'm a Senior Industry Specialist with Bluebeam. And so what we're going to be covering today, obviously as the title would suggest, is the process of kind of overhauling the workflow within your design review workflows. So a lot of times, or at least in previous recent history, this used to be a paper-based workflow. A lot of times people would just send out paper-based drawings, or they would host a war room and have folks kind of come in and conduct their markups in a design review process that, again, was very paper-intensive. And so we're going to look at how to kind of take that process digital. So, as I mentioned, this is hosted or presented by our friends at Microdesk. And today, as you can see, is a AIA continuing education webinar. Now, what does that mean? So, quick little slide here from our friends at AIA. But essentially, this material that you're viewing today is not constructed or endorsed by AIA, but does count toward the accreditation that you're seeing today. This will be 1 hour of credit for those of you that are interested in that process and getting your CES credit. So if you are interested in getting credit, one, I would note down the provider and course number here that's on the title slide. Also, you will need to be logged in under your own name on your own machine. So if you're viewing this in a conference room with several people, you will have to still be logged in under your own name, so we can track who was logged in. And you will need to be viewing this live. This is being recorded and will be distributed after today's webinar, but you will be needing to watch this live in order to receive credit. If you are interested in receiving a certificate of completion, for example, at the end of this, feel free to let us know and we'll be able to provide you one of those as well. Okay, so on to the course description itself. As I alluded to, this will be focused heavily on the design review process, and what that entails within Review is the ability to process your files, for example, exported out of Revit in 2D and 3D. Ultimately, be able to kind of create some smart information on the page within the documents that you're working with, and cut down on not only the amount of hours spent during the design review process, but ultimately the schedule itself. So we'll take a look at what it means to do a concurrent design review as opposed to an asynchronous or waterfall method as well. So with that, the specifics of what we're going to cover today, creating and marking up a PDF out of, for example, AutoCAD, Revit, SolidWorks, Navisworks, and SketchUp, or any IFC file as well. And we'll just touch on that briefly, and then we'll get into the markups themselves. So how to create basically ink on a digital page. So, and these can be customized and ultimately saved for later reuse as well, saving a lot of time not only for yourself but the rest of your project team. So we'll learn how to kind of distribute those standardized tool sets and different profiles and things like that. Ultimately, we're very it's a very important process to not only mark up the page, but ultimately assign or track the information that's being placed on the page. So we'll take a look at what that looks like specifically and how to work with kind of responsibilities or delegating and ultimately workflow tracking the information as it's being put through the design review process. And as I mentioned earlier, the ability to cut down on the number of hours spent, not only for yourself and your team as a whole, but the true schedule hours, and be able to kind of tighten up those very tight design review cycles. So with that, we will go ahead and hop into the software. Now, again, before I do so, I do want to mention, one, this is, again, being recorded and will be distributed after the fact. But two, feel free to ask questions in the question window. So on the go-to, you'll be able to see that there's a question section. Free to submit those, type those into that window, and I'll be reviewing those as the process goes. Now, we will have a Q&A at the end as well, so feel free to hold those if you'd like, but feel free to type them in sequence, and we'll try and address those as we get through each section. Now, for those of you that are brand new to the software, welcome. This is Revu, or one variation of it. Now, Revu does kind of come in 3 editions: Revu Standard, CAD, and Extreme. I'll be working in the Extreme version, but most of what I'm going to be showing today is available in all 3 versions, editions. So, for those of you, again, that are new to it, this command bar across the top is kind of the starting point for a lot of the features, just like any other Windows software. And so as I click through each one of these menus, you'll notice that these icons on the right-hand side are going to change. Now, I don't have a document open, so most of these are grayed out currently, and that prevents me from marking up, obviously, a blank window. This will be where my documents open up. In fact, let's go ahead and open up one of those here within this interface. You'll notice that it basically fills the space between these 2 panels. Now, I can go ahead and hide these panels and kind of maximize my screen real estate, and I can ultimately zoom in and see the details within this drawing a little bit easier. Now, I can also go ahead and click and drag and pan around, so I don't have to zoom out and then try and zoom back into a different location. I can literally just click and drag on my screen utilizing my mouse, and I'm utilizing my mouse wheel as well to go in and out. So this should feel very similar to navigation for those of you that use modeling software. Now, what's great about this file is this is a direct export from, in this case, Revit. So this was a sheet view that was created within Revit, and then utilizing the Bluebeam Revu plugin that is available within the Revit interface, you can create 2D PDFs. Now, beyond that even is the ability to create 3D PDFs. Now, we'll show that here in a second as I open up, for example, a rebar export. Now, again, this is an export out of Revit, but this could be something that is exported out of, for example, Navisworks or SketchUp or something along those lines. Those are able to create 3D PDFs as well. So this is basically just a snippet of a model. I could export the entire thing as well. But what's great about this is I can go ahead and actually select parts and see all of the information that's included in this, including what the material is, what the titles are, things like that, and be able to start kind of having the transparency of what this BIM model looks like. Now, taking this a step further, under the tab Access, I can actually come and find the model tree here. And this will allow me to turn on and off certain items. So I'm turning that W flange on and off just by checking the box. And I can also, for example, remove all of the concrete and leave the rebar. And this will ultimately allow me to see just the rebar cage itself. And so I can go ahead and zoom in and see a lot of the information that may pertain to this particular PDF. So if I pop open the Properties panel again, you can see, for example, what type of steel this rebar is, and then ultimately what sizing, or in this particular case, I believe this is number 6 bar, and so I can go ahead and see that information as well. So instead of doing this in 2D, I can ultimately share this in 3D as well. But in this particular case, for most of what we're going to do today, it will be in the 2D space. Now, for those of you that have seen the markup process, it does function in 2D as well as 3 dimensions. I won't be covering that today, but there are resources available to see the marking up and workflows within the 3-dimensional space. So what I'm going to do, again, is kind of focus on this particular drawing, just give everyone a baseline, and then I promise I will get into the more intense workflows here in just a moment. So we're going to start in the Markups panel across the top in the command bar, but there are also some toolbars here on the right-hand side, as well as a tool chest on the left, and this will kind of allow me to customize and save some different tools that I have available to me. But I'm going to work in my thumbnails panel so I can see exactly where I'm at within the drawing. You'll notice that this is a a blue window. It's basically blued or grayed out, and I can see what my viewing space is within the drawing as a whole. So now, if I come up to, for example, my shapes, I can go ahead and place a cloud on a particular subject. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this little wall here. So now I've identified a particular location on the drawing, but I may also need to place a call out or some sort of snippet of text. And it could be something as simple as need detail for this sliding wall. So you'll notice that this points back to a particular location. It's very clearly called out what it is that I'm trying to identify. But in this case, the text is a little bit too big for this particular region, so I can go ahead, click and drag, and slide it over. Now it will always point back to that particular location. Maybe I can refine where it is that the arrow is going to point. But this will, again, clearly define what it is that this looks like. Now, for example, I need to, or I would like to not only auto-size the text box, so kind of trim it up a little bit, so it takes up a little bit less space, but also I want to have some sort of border to this and maybe color scheme it as well. So what I can do within this, right-click and pop open the Properties panel. This is also available from Tab Access. So you saw me do this earlier, this little orange triangle. I can get at my Properties panel, or really any other feature within Revu, just by selecting this little orange triangle here, and this will give me a drop-down of what's available, including, as I mentioned, the Properties panel. So the Properties panel, in this case, pops open on the right-hand side, and this will allow me to see or change the properties of this particular markup. Now, if I wanted to do multiple markups at once, I can hold my Shift key and actually select multiple markups, and this will allow me to edit these all at once. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to say the subject is Design Review in this case. Now, under colors, I can go ahead and change, for example, the outline color as well as the fill color. So you'll notice the cloud, for example, has a fill. And what's interesting about this is it will basically become opaque by default, which is totally fine, because I also have the option to select highlight and allow the content to pop through. So Revu actually knows the difference and allows that vector work or vector information to kind of pop through. I can also change the fill opacity and kind of lighten it up if I'd like to be able to see a little bit lighter colorations. And then ultimately, before I get too much further, I do want to change the color of the text. So maybe sticking with some sort of theme, I can go ahead and make it blue or dark blue, for example. And that will, maybe I need to make this bold, for example, and this will now kind of fit the color scheme and theme that I need. Now, even more important than that is the subject, and this isn't changing anything aesthetically on the page, but this will come into play as we start talking about the data and tracking this information within the theme or workflow of a design review. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect this, go ahead and close this panel so I have a little bit more room and pop open my tool chest. Now the tool chest is really important, especially within this space, as I'm going to start reviewing documents with multiple people, and they're going to start placing this information directly on the page. And what that's going to start looking into or kind of get a little bit cumbersome is that if everyone's using the same markups, it can kind of start cluttering the page, and telling them apart can start to become a little bit different. So within the tool chest that I have here, I have a few tool sets already set up, and this is dependent on the profile that I'm in. So under View and Profile, you'll see that I'm actually in Design Review, which will define the tool sets that I have available. Now, within the recent tools, you'll notice that I have two that look really familiar. Those are the ones that I've already placed on the page. For example, the Need Detail for a Sliding Wall, which I can go ahead and replace somewhere else, maybe somewhere else within the, there's another location for a sliding wall. Or if, for example, I just want to copy the properties of this without it being a direct copy of the text itself, I can throw it into Properties mode, and this will allow me to make a new comment and just rename to hallway. So again, that will allow me to use the exact same properties without getting too deep into having to change the text and all of that. Now, what's great about this, as I pop open the properties panel, or excuse me, the markups list at the bottom, is it's tracking, for example, the authors, the dates and times, the colorations, the comments. All of this is being tracked down in this essentially spreadsheet at the bottom of the page. Now, for example, if I select any one of these, it's going to highlight that particular row in blue, and vice versa. So if I select one of these, I can't tell the difference between the need detail callout or need detail for the sliding wall. If I select one of those, it will actually highlight it on the page and differentiate those for me, so I can map back and forth between them, including as well the clouds for these. Now you'll notice under subject, these are all named design review, and that's dependent on, in this case, the subject that I provided for these. Now, I provided the subject once, and then as I reuse the tools from my tool chest, it's going to pull that property as well. So if I were to just place a blank cloud, for example, that will just take the default subject of cloud. So that doesn't pertain to any sort of workflow, so I want to make sure that I'm utilizing tools that have some smart data behind the scenes. So to go ahead and actually save these for later reuse, I can go ahead, right-click, and add to a tool set, or I can just click and drag as well and place them into, for example, the contractor review. Maybe this is a contractor comment that they need conveyed to maybe the architect or the owner, and they can go ahead and do that by utilizing these tools. Now we'll show what that looks like again as I start working in concurrence with each other or with multiple people within one document. So this is, again, just a quick overview. I'm going to go ahead and check the questions window and then transfer over to this live collaboration piece that we'll get into. So there was a question about aligning the markups. For example, these are a little bit skewed. What I can do, let's go ahead and select this one first. I want this to kind of be the parent markup. And then as I hold my shift key, I can select the other one as well. Now, as I right-click, I actually have a whole slew of alignment options. So I can go ahead and align left, and that would snap those text boxes to align based on this left-hand wall of the text box itself. So that is an option as well. All right. So let's go ahead. Actually, before we get too much further, I do want to show really, really quickly the process of kind of organizing my documents. So say, for example, a lot of times when I receive documents, I don't have the ability to define, for example, page labels and all that other information. And so as I open this combined set, for example, and I'm going to pop open my thumbnails panel, you'll notice that the page labels don't mean anything, and it's all one combined page. So in this case, it's 48 pages, a little tough to see there, but this is one of 48, so I'm on the first page. And so I want to kind of rename or work with these files within one combined set, but I don't want to bog down my computer and the computer resources. If I start adding a whole bunch of documents to this, it can get a little bit cumbersome for my processing drives, and I also want to be able to see what it is that's on this particular page without having to select it and then zoom in and find this information. So what I'm going to do is rename the page labels. So select Create Page Labels, a little yellow star there. Under Page Region, I'm actually going to pull text directly out of the title block into the page label. So it's kind of capturing all of this data into one location. So Page Region, go ahead and, in this case, I'm going to use the first criteria is my sheet number. This is a really important piece of information, as, for example, the first letter is the signifier of what discipline, first number is the type of sheet, and so I want to know this offhand. I also want to add a second region for the sheet name itself. Now, you'll notice that I'm giving myself a little bit of buffer here with this particular one, because I'm actually going to apply this to all of the other pages. So as I select the page range, I'm going to select all 48 pages, and if you keep your eye on the left-hand panel as I run this process, it's going to look in those two regions on all 48 pages, pull that text out into the naming convention that I provided, and ultimately give me a preview of what it looks like directly from within the thumbnails panel. Now the next step of this, for example, right-click, and I'm going to extract these pages out. Now I mentioned that I want these to not bog my computer down, so I want these kind of as individual files. So I'm going to extract pages, and I'm going to extract as separate files. Now, by default, it's only going to select the first page. I want to run this on all 48 pages. Now, I could do this by discipline, for example, and just multi-select all the civil sheets, and then all the architectural sheets, and then the structural sheets, and be able to run that process. But in this case, I'm just going to do everything all at once, one fell swoop. Also, if I had hyperlinks, which I'm not going to cover in this particular webinar, but there is a really neat function to be able to make these kind of hyperlinked and navigable together. That would be available as well, and then I can ultimately update those hyperlinks for them to still talk to each other, even though they pull into one separate file. Now, I'm going to just plunk this down on my desktop in this case into my extracted pages. So I'm going to select that as the landing folder for it, and it will start running this process. Now, if I can get there quick enough and I come to my extracted pages, you'll see that it renamed these and plunked down 48 pages. Now, I didn't go through and rename them based on the page itself, and that was kind of accidental. And you'll notice that it opened all of them, which again was accidental as well. So I'm going to save that one, but I'm going to close everything else, and this will close all of these together. But you'll see now that I had 48 individual sheets, and each of these is one page only. So if I had done this correctly, I would have the option to utilize that page label that I set up as the file name itself. So if I come to extract pages, I should have selected this box here, the use page labels, and then deselect open files after extraction. That way it didn't bog my computer down with 48 individual files. So lesson learned there. What we're going to do, again, I'm going to transfer over into what's called Studio. I'm going to check the questions window again really quick, but I'm going to pop into Studio and talk live collaboration here in just a moment. So there was a question, are there ways for multiple team members to do markups at the same time? We are just about to hop into that, so fantastic segue there. And then, is there a way to relabel the individual sheets not within a combined file? At this point, there is not, and so there's a kind of a workflow process that we tend to suggest for relabeling all of these, and it does start with a combined file and then ultimately an extraction of that particular file. All right, so that looks like it covers most of the questions. Again, feel free to type those in as we continue. What I'm going to do is hop into my Studio. For those of you that are new to Studio, it essentially is my cloud-hosted platform where I can not only host all of my files of any file type in my Studio project, this can become my document management system. So I'm going to hop into one particular project, which is essentially just a folder structure of all of my files for one particular project. So in this case, I have a sheet set and all those individual files that would go along with it. Now I have a set here, and again, due to restrictions of the time that we have, I don't have enough time to get into the sets feature. But what that is, essentially, is the ability to take all those individual files that you saw me extract, those 48 pages, and pull them into one cohesive drawing set. So what I did is just open this .bex file with a double click, and this can be hosted on my local machine or really any other file management system. But what this is essentially a hub that will point to all of my individual files for me. So you'll notice this particular file by properties is not very big. You'll notice that it's only 11 kilobytes in this case. But what it's doing is kind of in the background, without weighing my computer down, it's opening all of these individual files. Now in this case, it's all just the architectural files, and I can see at a glance what these look like and all the page labels and page names for these. So when I talk about the process of renaming these and organizing all of the page labels and file names, that's really, really useful because these will pull down or organize themselves dependent on that structure that I'm providing for it within the, for example, the page label or the page number or the file name. So as I open any one of these files, this is opening from our cloud-hosted Studio project, which if I pop open the Explore the Document folder, it's basically pulling directly from this, again, Studio file set. And currently it's locked. It's not available for me to edit, so if I right-click and check out, this will now be checked out in my name, and I can go ahead and place edits. In fact, you can see what sheet I'm in because it has a red check mark next to that particular file, and anyone else that would be logged into this document management system would see that A1.2.1 is checked out to Nick Decker in this case. So they wouldn't be able to place their markups, and they would have to wait for me to go through that review process. So I'm just going to place a couple dummy markups in this case. Place, cloud around certain pieces of this information. Right-click, check it in, and say added comments, for example. Select check in. And this will now update and be available for anyone else to come in and see. In fact, I can pop open the revision history, and I can see how this has progressed since it was uploaded in March all the way through all of those edits over the last several days, or last several months, excuse me. So it's all well and good, but again, as I mentioned, my teammates would have to kind of wait on me to get through my process, and then they would come in and place their markups and so on and so forth, which becomes a little bit prohibitive for that sped up schedule that I referred to. So what we're going to do in this case instead is pull these PDFs or these drawings into what's called a studio session. If I pop out of this project, you'll see that I have the other half of Studio. This is called Studio Sessions, and this is my live environment to log into these files and start working with them. So the consideration that I need to do with these ultimately is set up my files with any sort of customized information or data that I want included before I start this review process. So in this case, I'm going to pull them directly out of my project, push them to that live environment in Sessions. But I'm going to edit the columns or the sheets before that I pop them in. So we're going to do a review on these particular files. And what I'm really concerned about is we'll do exterior elevations. Yeah, so we'll do a review on this one in particular. And what I'm going to do before I pop these in is ultimately edit this information. So I'm going to right-click, check it out. And this is, again, a consideration because they will become kind of locked within the Studio session. I can just place markups, but I can't edit the content of the page. So I need to set that all up ahead of time. And that would include, under columns, the ability to set up some sort of customized responsibility or delegation that I'm going to work with within this particular project. Now, at this stage of the project, as I'm starting this design review, I should have a finite list of the people that I'm going to assign these items to. So under responsibility, I'm going to go ahead and modify and change this from an open text where I would have to type it in to a little bit more defined choice list. Now as I add, I'm going to put my own name, obviously, as well as a couple of my colleagues. Now this could be something that needs to be kicked over to the owner, and I can go ahead and select that as well as maybe this is a particular structural consultant. So I can do both internal and external reviews, and this could also be something that I send to the contractor in this case. Okay, so I have, again, a finite list of the people I want to assign these to. This will now become a drop-down list that I can go ahead and start assigning particular markups. Also, before I get too much further, I want to manage the statuses that are available within this. Now, the status column, by default, will populate with just these 5 options: accepted, rejected, canceled, completed, and none. Now that may be sufficient for what I need, but I have the option as well to create my own status options. So I'm going to go ahead and say design review as my my model that I'm going to populate with a handful of options, and this could be something as simple as critical, and make sure I spell it right. And I'm actually going to provide some sort of color change available with this as well. So this will basically be unlocked for anyone to change the statuses if I allow them to do this. So maybe this critical item will be purple, this will be accepted, and this will be a green light. So I'm going to make that green, and then maybe requires further review. And I could, again, kind of continue on with all of my subsequent, so maybe we'll make this yellow. All of my subsequent tool changes as I go through this process, I can change these to fit whatever I need. And if I have a default option, I can go ahead and assign that as well. I'm not going to do that in this case, but any markup that I place on the page will ultimately have the option to set a status for each one of these. Now, right now, I just have a stamp. It's a date stamp in the top left-hand corner here, and I'm going to keep that as is. I have the option to flatten it if I'd like. Right-click and flatten, and that would become content on the page as well. Now, before, again, I get too much further, I want the rest of my team to work on a consistent platform with maybe a profile or tool set that I provide to them. So under Toolset, I have the option to export any of these. So maybe this is architectural review, or I have the contractor in on this particular review, and I can go ahead and invite them and have them utilizing this particular tool set and provide these tools for them, including those customized ones that I provided earlier. Now, what I can do under Markup is attach that tool set to this top left-hand corner. So I save this to my desktop. I can go ahead and provide that maybe directly right here in the corner. Under Properties, I'm going to go ahead and change this to the file icon, which looks like a little tool set here. And now, as I provide this to maybe the contractor and I tell them to come in and review this particular document, they can go ahead and steal that or borrow that tool set, load it into their instance of Revu, and away they go. So that all looks well and good. Again, I can set this up ahead of time, and I could do this on all files all at once if I'd like. Again, I'm just going to do this for this particular one. Now, as I click Check In, I'll say customized, including toolset. Click Check In. Everything looks good to go. I'm pretty happy with it. So what I'm going to do, again, is pull these handful of files into a studio session. So everything's checked in. I'm really concerned about A7.02 as I start my collaboration. So as I right-click, I can add to a brand new session, and we're going to call this Design Review Round 1. Obviously, design review is a little bit of an iterative process. So what this would entail as these documents load is the ability to go through, review, place comments, make these markups and everything over the course of a period of time. We kind of put an end date on it. As that first round completes, I go back, I include that commentary or respond to everything within the model and get that included in the next draft. These are now recreated, and ultimately we start the cycle over, and I push all these files into a next round. So time permitting, we will do 2 rounds, but in this case we're just going to start with 1. So before I get too much further, I'm going to, 1, record this 9-digit code so I can have the rest of my team populate or hop in with me. Now I have the option to invite them. So under the invite, this little envelope here, I could go ahead and invite an entire team of people. So my Chicago office would populate with all those individuals. and say, join my session, for example. Now, I'm not going to do this in this case. I'm just going to do a self-contained one, utilizing kind of my alter ego, if you will, which is my Studio View account. Now, in this case, I have the option as well to set an expiration date. So the expiration, I can set a date and time that this will now complete and kick everyone out. In this case, I could set it for 5 p.m., or I could set it today at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And this will give everyone 22 minutes to do that review. So before I get too much further, I'm going to set my status to reviewing. And so as the other person logs in, they can see that I will be in the process of reviewing these particular files. So again, I'm going to pop open my alter ego and join this particular session. And I'm going to sign into Studio in this case. So I'm going to join utilizing that 9-digit code. Go ahead and click OK. And this will now request access. Now, I don't have access yet because I've not been essentially allowed by the owner yet. In fact, when I come back to the owner of the session, you can see uninvited attendee has attempted to be approved. I'm going to go ahead and allow this particular person because I happen to know them, because it's me. And now I can see, for example, Joe Smith has joined this particular session. So what we're going to do is a little bit of a split screen here, kind of a side-by-side, and you can see how this process would kind of take place. Now I'm going to have to create a little bit of screen real estate for myself, and we're going to pop open, in this case, the 7.02 that I was concerned with. Now we'll notice I have this open in my ownership or left-hand screen here, but I'm also going to populate or open that on the right-hand screen. And so I'm in the same file on both accounts, and so this would be as if two people were in the room. I can have myself, my alter ego, and 498 of my closest friends all in this session all at once. So there's really almost no restrictions as far as the ability to come in and review these documents. I'm also going to, in this case, I can set a customized status, and I have a previous customized status of eating a donut, which you'll notice populates immediately in everyone else's version of the session. So I can go ahead and place commentary. So let's go ahead and you'll notice as I'm placing commentary, it's immediately showing up as well on the right-hand side and vice versa. So that markup is already available on my alter ego's account, and vice versa. So it can be something as simple as providing some sort of commentary, and you'll notice as I place a comment that it's a different type of cloud. It's the default cloud, and that's because I haven't gone through and imported that tool set yet. So I'm just placing generalized questions in these particular locations, and you'll notice as I see Joe Smith has added a comment. I may not know exactly where that's located or what drawing it's on. If I click on that particular line item, so let me hide that panel here, click on that, you'll notice that it takes me to that particular location, and I can see that information immediately. In fact, it's giving me the exact same view that my hypothetical alter ego had when they placed that comment. So the same view and zoom ratios, all of that is putting me to that exact location. Now, if I need to notify someone, I can right-click, alert attendee, and select the other person from that particular list. Now you'll notice it immediately comes over with a orange flashing light in the notification window. There's also in the records list, Joe has alerted Nick Decker to this issue. And within my notifications panel, I can see that Joe alerted you to this. Now if I go ahead and move my screen, or I'm on a completely different document, so I have a different document open in this case, I see that Joe alerted me to something. I don't know where it's located, but if I click on that line item, it's going to open that particular document, take me to that location, highlight that markup for me, and as well show it to me in the markups list. So I can see at a glance what item that pertains to. Now you'll notice, again, it doesn't have any smart subject right now, and that's because Joe has gone through and not utilized the correct tool set that he was supposed to, or my alter ego was supposed to. So what I'm going to inform Joe of in this particular case, in the records list, I'm going to say, Joe, please utilize the correct tool set. Now, instead of just sending this and having Joe find it, I am going to zoom in to this particular location as I submit this comment. So I'm going to basically find it for Joe. Now as I click enter, again, this will populate in the records list on the right-hand side. If I click on that, if I'm Joe, it will take me to that exact location. I double-click on it, click open, and now this is provided within my tool set, and I have here let me pop out a little bit further, the ability to turn that tool set on. Now, it appears that it's not available within this particular profile, so I would have to add it, or I can go ahead and save it down. So I'm going to save that down. In this case, actually, what I need to do is import. So maybe this is something that was sent to me via an email. For example, I can go ahead and import a particular profile, and now that will become available. So as I select the design review profile or make it my live option here, I can see that I have that that contractor tool set that was supposed to be provided to me. Okay, so this was obviously just kind of a first play round of design review. And there were just a couple comments that were included, very early iterative process. What I'm going to do in this case is finalize and send this back to a studio project. I'm going to close out this first round. If I had to run a report, I could do so, but I'm going to wait to do this on the second round. And so as the owner, click finish. What I can do is actually leave it open. So I left the session, and that will notify Joe that I have left the session, and he can go about his work without me overbearing or having to be logged in or finding meeting times that work for both of us. I can just kind of open it up, set it up for everyone, and then go about my merry way and go on vacation if I really wanted to, and everyone can still get their commentary back in. But in this case, I'm going to close it out or finish it. So I'm going to select finish, and you'll see what this looks like as I finish this. I'm going to overwrite the existing, or basically push it back to a studio project as a new revision. I don't want to generate a report in this case, but I will toward the end. But you'll notice as I finalize the session, Joe has now been kicked out as the host has resubmitted this information. Now Joe is up and running with the correct profiles and the correct tool sets, which is all well and good, and I'm very happy with that. So this should be a little bit smoother the second time around, as Joe should be happy with, or a little bit quicker to pick up the speed here. So comment finished design review round 1. Click check in. Now I'm going to do all this processing that you'll see here in just a moment. And it will re-upload these to, again, that studio project as a new revision. So it takes a second to upload the dozen or so files that I have here. But once it's uploaded, I can select any one of these, including, for example, that 7.02, pop open the revision history, and I can see that commentary that was included. Now I can open it up, for example, see all those markups that were provided, including Joe Smith's commentary from previously. So the size of the steel, you'll notice that this is locked currently. I have the option to check it out, delete it, or confirm that it's been included or taken care of within the next session. We'll talk about statuses when we do that. But in this case, I'm just going to close them all out. Okay, so what I want to do at this point is update some of these files. So I have some revisions that have been released. You'll notice that I have my my Rev1 files, and there's some that may be carried over, and I want to include that as these this new round of review process takes place. So to do that, I'm actually going to pop open my set. Because I'm hosting these files on a set, I have the option to do that revisioning process directly within the set, which is really neat. While this is taking place, I am going to be reading the questions, I promise. So this set is all of the originals, and so as I kind of scroll through here, I can see all those original files. But I can go ahead and add new files to this set. Adding the files, if I have a revision or the set function, set feature within Revu recognizes a drawing number that it's already seen, it will basically pull that in as a new revision. And so we're going to see that here in just a moment. So pop into my Rev1 files, and I'm going to select all of those and upload them all at once into this particular set. Now, most of these should be revisions, and so if I look at my files here, you'll see that I have 5 files that have the number 1 next to them, and that means that those 5 files that I just uploaded are revisions of previous sheet numbers in this case. Now again, a lot of this is taking place in the sets feature, which we're not covering this webinar, but there are resources to be able to look into that further if that's of interest to you. Now as I click OK, it will basically say, hey, we're going to revise these 4 files, because one of these I had revised previously, and it will run through that revisioning for me and actually give me the option of carrying over markups. So if I click OK, it will carry over those markups to the new revisions, so I can have confirmation that any commentary that was placed that needed to be taken care of or revised within the new version can ultimately take place. So as I click OK, we're going to say revised original files, for example. Click check in. These 4 files will revise. The old files will ultimately get a giant superseded stamp, which you can see here, and so this will prevent my team from working off an old file. They don't have to be in the same folder structure or anything like that. That's the nice thing about it, is I can just leave my Rev1 files in its Rev1 folder, but it will function as if they are in the same folder when I utilize the sets feature. Well, let me shrink that up a little bit. And if I come down to, say for example, this A1.1.1, you'll notice that the title header here has Rev1 in it, and that means that this was a revised file. If I turn the page, that little blue arrow here, you'll see that this has a giant red X and actually a superseded stamp, and so that's telling me that that's the old file. You'll notice there's no Rev1 suffix on this particular file. So that's all well and good, and I can ultimately come in and see any of this commentary if it was picked up or not. So I'm going to turn back to the original, and if there was commentary that needed to be picked up, where was this wall detail, for example, I can go ahead and kind of confirm before going through the review process if this was all picked up. Now, before I send this back to a studio session, for example, to be reviewed, I have the option to check out and remove a lot of this information. So a lot of this may be extraneous, or I don't want it cluttering my next review round. Let's see here. We'll just do a couple of these callouts. Oops. You'll notice also some of these have revisions to them, or basically an email chain, and so that will allow me to see any commentary that went back and forth between 2 people, in this case between Drew Finkel and myself. But now as I'm completed with this particular process, I'm happy with it. Let's go ahead and check it in. Ready, whoops, caps lock is on. Ready for review round 2. Click check in. I'm happy to send this over. So this, I'm looking for a 1.1.1, which I can go ahead and do. Now, that happens to be in my revision folder here, and so I'm just going to send all 5 of these into the revision session that I'm going to work with. So right-click, add to new session, and we'll call this design. We're going to spell design correctly this time. Design review round 2. Click OK, and this will do the exact same process that we worked through before. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I do want to show the process of working with correct tool sets. So again, we're going to go hop into split screen here. Just select join, and I have the option to join just like I did before. 8, 4, 6. Again, you'll see an uninvited attendee has attempted to join. I don't have permission as Joe Smith on the on my view account. So I'm going to allow this. Go ahead and click OK. And Joe Smith has now joined this particular session. So now we can have our conversations back and forth, and we can be using our correct tool sets. So again, there's going to be commentary that goes back and forth. I'm going to go ahead and alert Joe to this particular item. You'll notice, again, this will land in the records list. If I click on it as Joe, I will see this review, and I can do one of 2 things. One, I can actually reply to this, so right-click and reply, and this gives me the option to provide some sort of commentary. Confirmed, ready for installation, for example. Now, what I didn't do on this particular sheet is set up the columns. So what I'm going to do before I get too much further is actually add that particular file that has those items set up. So let's go ahead and hop into I'm going to send this to that design review round 2 session. That was that A7.02 that I was working with previously. And if I populate that, or pop into that, if you will. Sorry, this is a little tough trying to do two people's jobs at once. I can place that same commentary, so let's go ahead and utilize that tool. So let's go ahead and as I place that comment, for example, and Joe follows it, whoops, I can also set a status as well. So the statuses that were available on the other files, because I did not set them up, did not include these critical, accepted, or requires further review. So as I set that requires further review, you'll remember that I set up coloring for it as well, and so that will change to yellow in this case, ultimately green, or if it's critical, in this case purple. So if Joe were to follow this, I'm not quite sure why the file is not pulling in at this point. You'll notice Joe logged off and logged back on. So it's still waiting to download in this particular case, and so that may take a second for Revu to push that to Joe's session. Now I'm pretty much out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and actually hop back. I'm going to finish the session and actually run a report this time. Close this out. And now, when I ran that report, it's going to do the exact same process where I have to check in these files, or I have the option to review them before I check them in. but I also have the ability to see here at the front the revision history, or excuse me, the records list. So that report that I ran essentially becomes my meeting minutes of what happened within that virtual conference room. And so in this case, there were 17 line items of what happened during that 5 or 10 minute review process that we worked with. So this can become my virtual conference room as Joe and I continue to work together. Okay, so I know we're right at our limit, so I am going to conclude it. I am going to keep it open for questions here in just a moment. But this does conclude the AIA Continuing Education course. For more information about what you've seen today, please contact Microdesk at salessupport@microdesk.com or 603-657-3407. Okay, with that, I'm going to stay on for a little while and answer questions.